Right, lads, welcome back to another video. You are joining me on one of the nicest days in Manchester that I have ever seen. It's like fucking Barbados, mate. It's absolutely wonderful. And we've got an absolute belter of a video today. We're going to be going over how to fix skinny fat. For those of you that don't actually know what skinny fat is, it's basically a type of physique, right? It's where you don't have a great deal of muscle mass. You've also got a little bit of body fat. You look quite soft, quite watery. You just don't look great, to be completely honest with you. I'm not saying that to be horrible, okay? I myself have been there, and I'm assuming if you're watching this, you too are either there right now or have been there previously. So it is not a nice position to be in. And because I've been there myself, I fully understand how much of a head fuck it actually can be. Like, you have no idea. Do you cut first? Do you bulk first? Do you try and do both at the same time? It's an absolute minefield trying to figure out what the fuck you need to do to actually fix it. But luckily for you ugly bastards, and like I've already said, I've been there myself. I'm going to put some pictures up on the screen so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And for reference, these pictures were taken after lockdown in 2020. Obviously, we went months without any gym access. All the gyms were closed. I mean, I don't think we really need to go into it. Everybody knows what happened. You can see, right? Low muscle mass, too much body fat, no real definition. I mean, just look at my face. I look fucking miserable, right? I was not in a good position. But I'm going to tell you exactly how to fix it. And we're going to focus on the big four. And I know you're probably sat there thinking,
Harry, what the fuck is the big four?
I'm going to tell you. There are four things that if you tailor to yourself, structure correctly, and get right, it is practically impossible to fail. The first is your training. The second is your nutrition. The third is your lifestyle. And the fourth is your schedule. And in this video, I'm going to break down all four so you know exactly what you need to do. So everything that I'm about to run you through doesn't just come from my own experience, but also the experience of literally helping hundreds of guys over the last 4 years escape the exact same position. So I like to think I know what the fuck I'm on about.
Whew, it's fucking well hot in here. Jesus Christ, I need to turn the bloody aircon on, mate. Right, the first thing I'm going to speak about is training. And of course, we're in the apartment gym. How fitting. Hopefully you can still hear me over this shit music that they play in here. But training is probably the one thing that I see lads cock up the most with. And it is unbelievably simple when you actually know how to structure it correctly and break it down, which is basically what I'm going to do for you because I'm a top guy. Now, before I get into it, I actually want to use my client Ed as an example here. Shameless self-promotion, I know, but it's extremely relevant. When Ed first came to me, he was actually already working with an in-person personal trainer, which is hard to believe, I know. And Ed was making one of the biggest mistakes that I see guys make when it comes to trying to fix that skinny fat physique. He was doing way too much cardio and he was not spending anywhere near enough time in the gym actually lifting weights. You got to think about it, right? Skinny fat, one of the biggest things that causes it isn't just a little excess of body fat, it's a lack of muscle mass. And whether you like it or not, the easiest way to build muscle is to lift fucking weights. Now, needless to say, Ed ditched his in-person PT, started working with myself, and 10 weeks later, this is where we're at. Not too shabby. So the first thing you want to do is get yourself on a correctly structured resistance training program, targeting each muscle group apart from legs twice per week. Now, don't get me wrong, you can train your legs twice per week if you wanted to, but for me, I just don't see the need to do so. And one of the first coaches I ever worked with told me something which has stuck with me ever since. He said, if you're able to train legs twice per week, you're probably not training them hard enough the first time. Basically, your legs are one of the biggest muscle groups that you've got on your body, which means they're going to take a lot longer to recover. So if you are training them with sufficient volume and sufficient intensity, you shouldn't really be able to get a second leg session in. However, when it comes to upper body, you do want to be training this twice per week. So what I would do is follow something like a push-pull legs upper program or an upper-lower upper style split. The next thing you want to do is make sure you're prioritizing your compound exercises. Again, another massive mistake that I see blokes making is doing so much isolation work and then just skipping out on their compounds entirely. For those that don't know, your compound exercises are basically the bigger movements, the ones that are going to target 2 or more muscle groups at the same time, and they're just going to help you get a lot more bang for your buck. Things like your bench press, your squats, your pull-ups. I would always look to prioritize these at the start of a workout and then finish with your isolation work, things like your bicep curls and your tricep extensions. So that's the type of training, your training split, and the exercise selection sorted. The next thing you need to make sure you're doing is training with accuracy before you even worry about training with intensity. I cannot stress the importance of this enough. So many lads just lump themselves in at the deep end when it comes to their training before having perfected their movements. To begin with, you shouldn't even worry about the weights that you're lifting or how hard you're training. You've got to nail the fundamentals. If you're working with a coach, they should be doing regular form checks with you and having you send them form clips on a frequent basis to make sure that your technique is neat and tidy. If you're not working with a coach, I'd be doing your own research and making sure that you're spending time practicing any movements you're a little bit uncertain about. Then you can start worrying about intensity, and this is the important bit. You want to be training as close to failure as you possibly can. Now, to begin with, it is a skill, and it's going to take a little bit of time. You're not just going to be able to go into the gym for the first time and take a set to absolute muscular failure. Now, obviously, there's certain exercises where taking a set to true through failure is probably a little bit dangerous. Something like a squat, for example, probably not the smartest idea. But other exercises, things like dumbbell presses, machine work, isolation work, you can absolutely take all the way to failure. And whether you like it or not, that is how you build muscle. Your body needs a stimulus that it can then respond to. If your training isn't challenging you, then it's not gonna change you. Oh, another little point that I low-key forgot about, whoops. When we're looking at volume, okay, how much volume should you be doing on a week-to-week basis? A question that I get asked quite frequently, to be fair. To be completely honest with you, it all depends on obviously where you're at on that spectrum in terms of how hard you're actually able to train. If you're more of a beginner and therefore haven't learned the skill to actually train at a high enough intensity, you're probably going to need a lot more volume versus someone who's a little bit more experienced and can take a set closer to that point of failure. So a real general rule of thumb is like 8 to 12 working sets on a muscle group per week. You should be able to see pretty decent progress on that. But of course, you're going to have lagging muscle groups. So for me, it's my biceps. They're the smallest muscle group on my body and I absolutely hate them. And it just feels like no matter how much fucking bicep work I do, they just don't grow. Don't be scared to add a little bit more volume in on the muscle groups that either you want to bring up a little bit more or maybe they're lagging behind. Next up, nutrition. And lo and behold, I'm in the kitchen. There's a bit of a theme going on here. Can you see what I'm doing? Kind of clever. Now, there are two different types of skinny fat, all right? And which type you are completely depends on the nutrition strategy that you then put in place. You have type 1 and type 2. If you are type 1, it typically means that you are more fat than you are skinny, all right? Whereas if you're type 2, you're more skinny than you are fat. You still have a little bit of body fat to lose, but not as much as someone who is type 1. So if you are type 1, the first thing you want to do is get yourself into a slight calorie deficit. Now, if you're not sure how to work out your calories for both of these examples, the easiest way to do this is by using a calorie calculator online. Sure, it's not the most reliable thing in the world, but it's a good place to start. And a little bit of trial and error goes a very long way. And sooner rather than later, you'll have figured out what calories you should be aiming for. But as I was saying, if you're type 1, a slight calorie deficit. Alongside this, you probably don't need as much protein as someone that's in type 2. So around 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is going to be absolutely fine. Whereas if you're type 2, you want to be eating at around maintenance calories. However, you're going to need a little bit more protein because you're on the skinnier side. So around 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight is going to work a treat. Now, regardless as to what type you are, carbohydrate intake and fat intake should be relatively similar. So a general rule of thumb, around 20% of your food should come from fats and the remainder should come from carbohydrates. For both of these examples, I would recommend using the 80-20 approach. Now, the 80-20 approach, to put it bluntly, is an approach that you use to keep you more consistent over a prolonged period of time. Because let's face it, no one gets in amazing shape overnight. You've got to stick to this for a decent chunk of time. Having that 80-20 approach in place makes that a lot easier. So 80% of the foods that you eat should ideally be coming from clean, whole food sources. These are things like your lean meats, your pastas, your grains, your fruit, your veg, all of that good stuff, right? But 20% of the food that you eat is then your fun buffer. Basically, whatever the fuck you want it to be. The beauty of structuring your diet in this way is it will keep you more consistent as opposed to if you just tried to eat 100% clean, healthy, organic, whole foods. Let's face it, you're probably gonna last for a week or two and then give up. Whereas if you have a 20% buffer there, maybe you want to go out on a Friday night, maybe you want to go out on a Saturday night, you have a little bit of wiggle room to play around with, and ultimately it makes the process less miserable. When it comes to meal timings and portion sizes, this is obviously quite individualized. So it's quite difficult for me to just give you one straightforward answer. However, over the years and from experience, what I've learned is that guys who are typically more type 1 and have a little bit more body fat to lose get a little bit hungrier throughout the course of the day than those guys that are type 2. Which means if you're type 1, you may be better off spreading your meals out more frequently throughout the course of the day, maybe 4 or 5 meals a day, but lowering the portion sizes across the board. Whereas myself, having been more type 2, I typically find that having larger portion sizes but less frequency works a lot better. But as I've said, this is just an observation that I've made over the years and from my own experience. Ultimately, portion sizes and how frequently you want to eat is going to be completely dependent on you. All right, the third thing I'm going to touch on is your lifestyle. This is your social life, your activity level, and it is way more important than what most people think. In fact, I'd go as far to say it's the most overlooked aspect of the entire process. So we'll start with the social life because this is the bit that trips most lads up. And I've actually got another example for you. How lucky are you? We're going to be speaking about my client Ross. Shock horror, another shameless self-promotion, but it's very, very relevant because as you can see, I'll put a picture somewhere on the screen. When Ross actually came to me, he was skinny fat as well. Just like Ed, just like I used to be, Ross was also skinny fat. It's almost as if this is a massive, massive problem for guys and exactly why I'm making this YouTube video. video. But Ross was skinny fat, and he also explicitly said to me that he loves going out at the weekend and he loves drinking alcohol, and he wasn't prepared to give that up. So naturally, I thought, I respect it. And then we got to work, and as you can see, this is what we did in just 11 weeks. I mean, are you kidding me? 11 weeks, we had him go from that skinny fat position to six-pack abs. So how did we do it? Well, there are actually a couple of different things that I programmed for us that were working together in unison, and the first was on and off days. What that basically means is that there were days in the week where Ross was on calories. He would track his food, he'd hit his calorie target, and he'd hit his macros. There were also then days in the week where he was off calories, basically the weekends. He had more flexibility, more freedom, where he could go out and not really worry too much about the foods that he was eating or trying to hit specific targets. But alongside this, we also used a principle called calorie banking, whereby we would highlight the big ones in his week, basically the big social occasions where we knew Ross was gonna go out and get absolutely shit-faced and then probably order a great big dirty kebab on the way home, and we would bank calories in the build-up to it to basically mitigate any damage. For example, if Ross knew that he was going out on Saturday night and he was going to go on an absolute bender, what we would do is pull his calories down Monday through to Friday, so that when Saturday came around, he had a nice pool of calories that he could use up on top of his total daily calories, which usually we would pull down on that Saturday just a little bit anyway, i.e. smaller breakfast, maybe a smaller lunch, so that he had more food to play with on that Saturday night. And as you can see, once again, it's safe to say that both of these approaches worked really, really well. Then we're going to look at your NEAT, which stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which sounds like this massively overcomplicated thing, but to be honest with you, it really isn't. Basically, your day-to-day movements, walking the dog, cleaning up after the dog, picking up the dog's shit. You get the picture. Now, like I said, this actually has a lot more weight to it than what most lads give it credit for. For example, just 8,000 to 10,000 steps per day is going to bank you around 400 to 500 calories burnt additionally every single day, which over the course of a week is around 3,000 to 3,500 calories burnt. And let's not sit here and pretend that it's the hardest thing in the world to do. You're hardly sweating your bollocks off when you go for a 30-minute walk, are you? And for the lads that are going to sit there and say,
No, but I'm really busy with work. I don't have time to walk more.
yes, you do. Wake up 30 minutes earlier, go for a 30-minute walk. After your dinner, instead of just sitting down and watching Netflix straight away, go for another 30-minute walk. It isn't rocket science. Those 2 slots of 30 minutes is going to bank you at least 6,000 or 7,000 steps per day on top of what you originally get done anyway. And finally, we're going to speak about your schedule, which we have spoken about just a teeny tiny bit, but I wanted to elaborate on it just a little bit more. Your schedule, right, is going to be completely individualized to you. You have your own job, your own family commitments, your own shit going on, basically. And it's for that reason that everything that we've spoken about up until this point, your training, your nutrition, your social life, has to be tailored around your schedule. I mean, it would be great, wouldn't it, if we could all just fucking quit our jobs and then go and live in the sun somewhere really beautiful. But unfortunately, we have to go to work and we have to make ends meet. So everything needs to be tailored around your schedule. If it's not, then it's not going to stick and you're not going to get the results that you're after. A great example of how you can start tweaking these things to your own schedule would be your choice of training, right? If you're someone who is a little bit busier, maybe you have more commitments and less time to train in the week, then a 3-day training program is probably going to work a little bit better for you. It's going to be easier to stick to and it's not going to cause any external stress. Whereas if you're someone who's got a little bit more time on your plate and you have the availability to train a little bit more in the week, something like a 4 or maybe even a 5-day program is obviously going to be better suited. And the same thing goes for your nutrition. If you're someone that works an office job, for example, and you go into the office 5 days a week, then learning how to meal prep is probably quite a sensible thing to do, because it means in the week when you are super busy and traveling around and on the go, you don't have to worry about it so much. Whereas if you're someone that maybe works from home, you probably don't have to worry about it because you have the luxury of being able to cook as and when you please. I've spoken about it before and I don't want to sound like a fucking broken record, but it all comes down to prepping your environment. You need to recognize what your week actually looks like, what sort of commitments you have going on, and then build your systems out completely around you. There's no point trying to copy what somebody else does because they might have a completely different life. Take me, for example. I am lucky to be able to work from a laptop from the comfort of my own home, which means, do I need to meal prep anywhere near as much as my girlfriend, who for reference works as a biomedical scientist and goes into the lab 5 days a week? No, I don't. So why would I try and copy her and meal prep every single breakfast, lunch and dinner that I eat if it's not actually going to work for me? And to be honest, this is just one of the reasons why when a new client starts working with me, I will do a full in-depth assessment of them, their life, what they do for work, what their social life is like, so I know exactly what's going on in their day-to-day and can program everything for them so they don't have to think about it. I mean, can you imagine if I had a new client come to work with me who works a ridiculously stressful job and is super duper busy, and I try and get him into the gym 6 or 7 days a week? It's just not gonna happen. So we have to make sure that we're pulling these things around the individual. And again, this is just one of the big reasons why, if you're trying to copy someone else or what someone else is doing, it's not gonna work. Fitness is individualized, and you've got to do what works best for you. Oh, just fucking smashed my elbow on the wall. Oh, right on the funny bone. And that is that, gentlemen. Hopefully you have learned something in this video. As I've said, this comes from a place of not just my own experience, but helping hundreds of guys escape that skinny fat position. And if you're watching this and you're currently stuck in that skinny fat position, I promise you, there is light at the end of the tunnel. As always, if you have any questions about absolutely anything, just drop them below, chaps. Like, I'm gonna be answering them questions. I wanna try and help as many of you as possible. And also, I think I mentioned this at the start of the video, I'm giving away 6 weeks completely free coaching. So if you do wanna get the ball rolling and you don't wanna pay a penny, link in bio, click it to get started. No strings attached, no catch whatsoever, all right? I would massively appreciate it if you give the video a little like, helps me out a lot, lets me know that you've enjoyed yourself, and I will catch you in the next one.